Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, of course, we'll be doing our Memphis Grizzlies offseason recap. If this is the first time you've ever watched one of these, or might be just listening to it as background noise, now, what we will be doing today is recapping every move that the Memphis Grizzlies have made this offseason, from departures, additions via free agency, trade, or the draft, and every move in between. So Tomas Isalo is entering his first year as full-time head coach. He took over, as you guys remember, right before the playoffs. There was like 10 games or so. I was actually fortunate enough to speak to Tomas Isalo a few games after, or a game or two after he had become the head coach, due to the fact that I am fortunate enough, even though I can speak right there, I am fortunate enough to have been granted credentials to cover the Miami Heat, and I tend to go to both conferences pre and post game for both teams, the home and away, as I cover the NBA more broadly. So speaking of Tomas Isalo, hearing his philosophy of the game this year, I think the offense is going to look drastically different than it had in previous years, due to the fact that, as we drop my remote, 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. So one of the big moves that happened, as I apologize for that little fumble, the biggest move, or the one that stirred the big headlines, Desmond Bane for 4 first-round picks, Cole Anthony and Contavious Caldwell-Pope. And then they went out, got themselves Cedric Howard. They already had our man, Jalen Wells, from last year. So they're going to replace Desmond Bane and his contract with a committee approach, which I actually like. Yes, Contavious Caldwell-Pope had a down year for his standard. He's still a guy who's healthy, and he had a really rough playoffs, but you're hoping that if he can rebound, yes, he might be on an overinflated contract, but if he can play like 20 minutes a night, Jalen Wells can play 20 minutes a night, Cedric Howard can at least play 15 minutes a night, and they all can be above league average three-point shooters, maybe somewhere between 36 and 40%, while Cedric Howard being 6'5", and I know he's coming off of a torn labrum and a partially torn rotator cuff in, I believe, his left arm, that, I asked him to explain what had gone on. They brought in Javon Small as a backup point guard who can pass and shoot well from three, and Jemai Mashak, who I got to see at Portsmouth, or Jemai at Portsmouth, another really good, swingman defensive guy. Cedric Howard's got a 7-foot wingspan. Yes, a little bit of a below-the-rim player, but he's a fantastic defender. So I actually like the idea of a Jalen Wells, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, and Cedric Howard three-man committee at the swingman position, the shooting guard, small forward, wing position. Right there, I think that was a good pickup. And then Javon Small and Jemai Mashak, right? Or Mashak, yeah, right? Or Mashak. Someone tell me if I'm saying that correctly. I literally saw him at Portsmouth, and I've talked to him. Great player, great, standout guy. Now, the current projected lineup as of right now, and Cedric Howard actually didn't play during the summer league due to still recovering from the injury. He told me he was cleared, but clearly it was cleared probably to start training and working out, but not cleared to play. So the current lineup of Ja Morant, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, KCP, a.k.a. Jalen Wells, Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey, Ty Jerome is someone that they brought in free agency, Scottie Pippen. I like that, kind of like that duo right there. Vince Williams, a great, diamond in the rough that they found, defensive guy. They brought back Santi Aldama, who I still think is going to be able to take another leap, and especially with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey recover from injury, we're going to see that. They kept Brandon Clark, who's, going to be a full year removed from that Achilles injury. They brought in Jock Landale, who I think is a solid reserve big man. They have Lawson Lovering on a exhibit contract that I think him and Jemai are going to compete for the last two-way spot. Coward, John Conchar, Cam Spencer was restructured on a new deal. Gigi Jackson all make up, the last 10 through 15. So there's a lot of three-point shooting. There's a lot of size here. So what are your thoughts on this lineup so far, guys? So one thing I want to say, Lawson Lovering is actually the guy, he played with Brandon Carlson, but a very similar Brandon Carlson, 3-and-D, big shot blocking guy out of the University of Utah. I expect him to probably be on the G League team for them, as PJ Hall, a Swiss Army knife, a little bit of an undersized, 6'10", 6'9", passing, floor spacing, 10 block shots, score, has kind of a bag, who played on a two-way last year for the Nuggets, filled their second two-way. This year's second-round pick, Javon Small, took one of them. So Jemai and probably Lawson are going to compete for that final one. I'm going to go with Jemai, who they drafted, probably taking it. And yeah, I think this is a really, if you just look at it, basically, look, John Conchar and Jock Landale are probably going to be their end of the bench guys. I really think Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen, depending on where Cedric Howard is health-wise, and Cam Spencer are all going to be duking it out for the minutes behind Ja Morant and Contavious Caldwell-Pope. While Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells, I think you can throw John Konchar, Cam Spencer can play a little bit up. Cedric Howard and Vince Williams. I mean, they also had Santi play some minutes at the 3. All will also play minutes at the 3 because Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells, and Mr. Cedric Howard are guys who can play the 2 or 3. Same thing with John Konchar, I would say. Cam Spencer, maybe a little bit. He's a little small, like 6'4", but he's tough enough. Santi Dama plays literally the small forward, power forward, and center position. Brandon Clark's kind of more of a big now after the Achilles injury, but he's scoring big. I wonder if they're all going to make a move here, as their top salaries being Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Santi Dama, Brandon Clark, and Zach Edey. And to me, I think everyone sits here and thinks that if there was going to be someone moved, that it might be a Brandon Clark or if I had to assume, like, it's the first one, I'm going Brandon Clark, and then it's John Konchar as the two. If you were able to move there, that's almost $20 million in salary. Now, this team included the dead money of $171.5 million. They have $4.1 million in dead money, and their tax line is $29.4 million below it. So that's huge that they're at a situation where they're below the tax line. The apron total, so the first apron, they're $37 million below it, and they're $48 million below the second apron. So for a team that has their main players locked up, they're at a good position. However, they don't have any biennial exceptions or mid-level exceptions. Those are all used up. They don't have cap holds, and we mentioned 2 of the 2 ways have been filled. So what Zach Kleiman did here, their general manager, was salary cap gymnastics. He rebalanced the books. He got himself 4 first-round picks, and he gave this team flexibility, not just from a roster standpoint, but also from a cap standpoint, which is huge. Is what you need to do. Memphis sits well below the aprons, okay? They aren't going to be thinking about, oh, we need to make a move to get below the apron. Oh, we need to do this. And I mentioned earlier that Brandon Clark and John Konchar could be 2 guys that they move. All right, that is possible if they wanted to trade for maybe a bigger salary, and they could eat some of that salary. Or if they wanted to get themselves into a position in the offseason. Obviously, I believe John Konchar isn't expiring, but either way, I think they positioned themselves very well to make an in-season move if a player that could become a third or second fiddle to make a big 3 of a Jaren Jackson Jr. and a Ja Morant into a reality, that could be well positioned. They could also use Contavious Caldwell-Pope's contract in there too. The whole thing I'm getting at is that they have stackable contracts, they have the cap space, and the ability to either make a move that will allow them to get more depth or make a move to get a good player to be their second or third fiddle to join Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. Obviously, it'd probably be a wing. Seems like they're invested in Zach Edey and the front court help that they have there. And with Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells, and Cedric Howard all fitting the 2-way style that complements Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., they've added young players and rookies and other role players at inexpensive contracts. And I think, yes, the biggest questions here with Zach Edey, Santi Aldama, of course, Jock Landale, Jaren Jackson Jr. This team is obviously, Edey's coming back from that ankle injury or surgery. His development, his health, as well as his Brandon Clark's health are all pivotal, as this team is probably figuring out that center rotation. Is it good enough? Is it going to be able to push them over to the hedge? And I think if there's a center that becomes available, maybe a Yak Pirtle, could they be a team that's interested in that? I wouldn't be surprised if they are. And they've set themselves up, by prioritizing assets and the optionality. Instead of going out and spending money, they're able to go ahead and have the ability to seek a big fish finally if they need to, especially if they have all those assets. They got Cedric Howard at 11. Yeah, it might be a bet, but I think a 6'5" guy with a 7-foot wingspan who is a 40% shooter, who's an incredible personality and just seems like he's really well, while they take swings on Small Meshack to round out the backcourt depth, is solid. While they have cap flexibility, they reshape the roster. The front office is able to pounce at any trade or buy low starter that emerges in the trade market this upcoming season near the deadline due to the assets that they have and the contract, so they can just stack that up. And yeah, so that's basically everything I have right here. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I really do appreciate it. That's basically going to be my thoughts on what I think is kind of necessary if we're going to go ahead and talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. So that's my takeaways. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you made it to the end of the video, you should hit that like and subscribe button. It'll help out the channel a ton, as it seems that you enjoy this type of content. Till next time, guys. Cheers.